And I'm doing good.
Good. Welcome to this Spinifex Press interview with khulud, who's the author of a new novel called Haifa Fragments. I'm Susan Hawthorne, the publisher at Spinifex Press, and today I'm talking with Palestinian author khulud. Khulud is an activist and a khulud is an activist whose writing reflects her political engagement with the world. She was born to a Slovak mother and a Palestinian father, and holds a master's degree in English literature from the University of Haifa. She works in the field of social change, and in particular, she's a member of the feminist organisation Isha Lisha, otherwise known as Haifa Feminist Centre, and she lives in Haifa with her daughter. So, khulud, what was it that prompted you to write Haifa Fragments?
Um, I've been writing since I've been a little girl, and I think that the fact that I became an activist affected me profoundly. Um, just being a feminist activist in a conflict zone. I think that I took my writing to be my main activism tool. And being in the feminist center, Isha Isha means in English woman to woman, and it's a feminist community, a radical feminist community. And I think that there I got actually my political voice, and from there I started writing about political issues, and I got the legitimization actually to bring my voice, my political voice, out to the public, and yeah, I think that's basically it. And I also wanted to bring out voices that are not heard. I write in English because I think that there's a lack of voices coming from within Israel about Palestinians. So when you hear about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and you hear about Palestinians, it's usually the life experiences of Palestinians in the West Bank or in Gaza, and you don't hear much about the experiences of Palestinians within Israel. Um, we are 20% of the population. It's some 1.7 million people, and our voices, our experiences, they don't reach the world.
Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things is that the story has so many different characters in it. I mean, there's the Mysoon, who is an artist and a jewelry designer, and she's the key character. She has a number of very intense relationships. There's her boyfriend Ziad. There's Shad, who lives in the refugee camps. There's Amalia at the jewelry shop, the foreigner, Chris, and then there are her parents, and they're all so very different from one another, and different in the ways that they relate to Mysoon, and each seems to be sitting at the other end of a seesaw with a distance connected to religion, sexuality, ethnicity, or generation. And in a way, Mysoon seems to be dancing through this minefield of contradictions. What is it that drives your character, Mysoon?
Okay, I'd like to first talk about the different characters, or why I have these different characters. I think that what I tried to do was to show the complexity of reality here inside Israel for Palestinians, and because we do live in a very complex situation, and I couldn't bring this experience without having these different types of characters, and we are all individuals, and each of us has their own opinions. So you will see that the main character, Maysoon, she has her views as opposed to her boyfriend Ziad. He has different views about the conflict, or about how to cope with it. Um, the reason I have her father is because I want to also show some kind of a continuity, some kind of a connection to the history, and how she deals with this with carrying the collective history, but at the same time also trying to live or to make a life for herself. Then we have Amalia. She's a Jewish, and she's the owner of the jewelry boutique where my son works. So I wanted to show also the relationships between Jews and Arabs, and how it's not always a simple relationship. And of course, I had to have a character from the West Bank, because I think that we are the same people, Palestinians. If we live in Israel or the West Bank or Gaza, we belong to the same nation, and we are not disconnected. Yes, we are separated by the occupation and by the apartheid wall, but these people, some of us have families, family members in West Bank and in Gaza. Some of us have friends, and this is part of our country. And I couldn't disconnect. I couldn't, my son doesn't live in a vacuum. She lives with all these complexities around her, and I wanted to bring out these different voices also.
Yes, and the other thing that comes through is that each character has her or his own way of perceiving what's going on around them. And you see very different parts of the society. And it is a hugely complex society, and in such a small geographical area. I mean, I'm in Australia, where our neighbours live 300 kilometres away. And it's really so different. And I have been to Israel, and I couldn't believe that the distances were so tiny. You got in a taxi to go from one city to another. That's incomprehensible in my life. And also that the different characters showed the world differently. Like when my son is going around with Chris, the foreigner, you get to see how differently perceived the country is depending on what you know about it, and that my son is able to draw those rooms, those houses that they go to, in a different kind of way from how the character coming from outside Israel is. But also that somebody like Shad has such a different take on where she thinks her life is going, and where, as a reader, you wonder, by the time you get to the end, well, where will my son go with her life? But some of it is very clear. And some of it's very clear that she's a toughie. And that brings me to another question, which is how, as a writer, how do you deal with the politics? I mean, I know as a feminist writer myself, it's very difficult to not be didactic. So what are your strategies as a feminist writer to be both political and yet not hit somebody over the head with it?
Oh, okay. This is a tough question because I'm still struggling with it myself. It's not. It's very challenging, but I think that what I do is I just draw on experiences of people, and I try to humanize it, or through the personal stories to bring this out. Like, for example, if I want to show how Israeli society is militarized, this is why I had a character that comes from abroad, and she is shocked at this militarization of society, that you see guns everywhere. When you walk down the street, you see 19-year-old kids with machine guns. So I just try to draw these things. It's not it's not easy. It's an ever, challenge.
Yes, I think it is something that every feminist writer uh, deals with, struggles with, and we all come up with our own ways of dealing with that challenge. But you've managed to do that in a very complex way, I think. And the other thing is, how long have you been working on Haifa Fragments? And can you say something about the process of the writing of the book?
Okay, I think this book had several lives, let's say. The first time I came up with the idea of writing a novel was when I received a small prize at the University of Haifa for writing poetry. This was back in 2003. And when I got the prize, I'm like, oh, okay, I can write a book. And I discovered that it wasn't that easy. It was very, very difficult to write a novel. I think that I hung on to this idea for years with my teeth. I wanted to give up so many times, but something within me just kept telling me that I had belief in myself, and I believe that this it should be written. Um, it it was a challenge. It still is. Right now, I'm also working on something new, and it's always a challenge. Yeah.
And what are your hopes for the novel, for Haifa Fragments?
Oh, my hopes. I think that my main goal was to get my voice out there, and for people outside of Israel that want to learn about what is really going on here, that they would read it and get more interested, and not only get their information from mainstream media, because what you get in the mainstream media is so not what is going on here. Um, I want people to be more to think more critically, to open their eyes, and also to listen to marginalized voices, to voices of women also. The experiences of women are different than those of men. Women experience the conflict in unique ways, different ways. Um, so yes, and the novel. I mean, I live here, and so it's a local voice, and these are the experiences that we live through. Of course, they don't sum up all of the experiences. It's just one voice of myself. I don't represent the whole population. Um,
But in a way, your characters come some way to doing that. One of the moments where that's obvious is where the mothers of the two characters meet, where the mother of Shad and the mother of Maysoon meet on the day that they go to the West Bank. Could you say something about that?
yes, I am. Laila, that's my son's mother. She's from the older generation, and before the wall, before the apartheid wall, and before all the closures, it used to be the West Bank used to be open. People could go and visit before the first Intifada, and so this was her life. She has friends there, uh, and for her it was so natural to cross this line and to go and visit. For my soon, it was different because she lives in a different time. She grew up in a different time. She grew up after the first Intifada and during the second Intifada. So, and she has these issues of identity. And I think, in we Palestinians in Israel, we have different views on our identity, or how we cope with it, or how we relate to Palestinians in the West Bank. So I wanted to show also this, and also my son's father. He was kind of reluctant. He was afraid because he grew up in his youth. He grew up under military rule, Israel, inside Israel, until 1967, it was under military rule and Palestinians couldn't move freely inside Israel also.
Yes, and in the younger generation, between Ziad, Maysoon's boyfriend, and Maysoon herself, you also have two characters who are responding very differently to their current situation. And Ziad is very he's very fearful, and for good reason. And Maysoon is a tornado. And they come at life very, very differently. But they both have, how would you say, that they both have that experience of living with fear, with the war around them, with their own generational ideas and reactions. But have come up with such different ways of responding to it. And I think that's one of the great things about the novel. It's that complexity that you show through the individual characters. And for me, that's one of the really fine achievements that you've managed. And then I suppose the other thing is that the character of Shad, just for a moment, if you could say something about her and what her life represents for you.
Okay. This one was a extra difficult challenge for me as a writer, because as a feminist, I cannot speak for other people. I can speak for myself. I can speak for where I live. But it was, like I said before, it was important for me to incorporate characters from the West Bank. But you can see that Shahid's character is not as rounded, as developed as Maysoon's is. And this was the reason, because I really cannot speak for people in the West Bank. So her whole life is kind of as seen by Maysoon, as perceived by Maysoon. I couldn't get any deeper into her life for these reasons, because I can't speak for them.
Yes, there is a sort of continuing mystery, really, about who Shad is when she's not in the narrative with Maysoon, and that makes sense because there is, after all, a wall between their lives. In a very literal sense, whereas the differences between the generations are walls of time, and yeah. So I mean, I would really like to congratulate you on your novel. The one other thing I'd like to mention is that you and I met at a peace conference in the Philippines.
Yeah.
How do you see your peace activism working in with your writing? Is it part of your peace activism, or is it some other part of you? I don't know.
I think they go hand in hand. When we have like during last summer's military attack on Gaza, I wrote a poem. I'm also lately I've been doing some photography. So we did a photography session with hands like this and written on them in Arabic, Hebrew, and English enough. And I wrote a poem called "War Is Not My Language." I think my activism is within Isha Leisha. That's my community. That's my activist home. And as a community, sorry, we work together during crisis. We usually get together and we discuss. Okay, what are we going to do? How can we resist this war? How can we resist the occupation this time? What can we do? And we divide tasks. So each one does, each one is responsible for something, and usually I take up the writing part in English. I also write I post on Facebook things in English, and I write on my blog. Yeah, so it goes hand in hand. I think I'm good at. I believe I'm good at writing, so I use this as a tool of my activism, as my main tool. Of course, I do other things. I go to demonstrations, but um, my main activism tool is writing.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for talking with me today, khulud. If you want to know more about the book, those of you who are watching this video, please go to our website at www.spinifexpress.com.au. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The handle for Twitter is @Spinifex Press. Spinifex is an independent feminist press which depends on your support for survival. Our authors are feminist writers from around the world, so please do your bit to bring about a better world. Thank you. Bye, khulud. I hope we'll talk again soon.
Bye.